Music around the world is incredibly diverse, but there are also some features of music that are widely shared. This raises a question. In what respects does music sound the same or different to people from different cultures? One common feature of many musical systems is the use of note sequences, or note combinations, also known as intervals, related by simple integer ratios. In Western music, such intervals are considered consonant and are heard as pleasant. Intervals where notes are related by more complex ratios are considered dissonant and are heard as unpleasant by Western listeners. There has been long-standing interest in what underlies the distinction between consonance and dissonance, and in particular, the extent to which this distinction depends on one's cultural background. We previously found evidence that the aesthetic distinction between consonant and dissonant intervals is culturally dependent. Specifically, we assessed preference for consonants in the Chimane, an indigenous population living in the Amazon basin in Bolivia. Unlike Western listeners, the Chimane do not appear to prefer consonant over dissonant intervals, despite exhibiting preferences for other contrasts between sounds. Our main question in this paper was whether the Chimane's perceptual representations of musical intervals qualitatively differ from those of Western listeners, along with their aesthetic evaluations. We looked at this question specifically in the context of concurrent pairs of notes, which can produce the phenomenon of fusion, whereby note pairs are misperceived as a single note. Consonant intervals have long been thought to fuse perceptually more than dissonant intervals. This is plausibly because the combination of harmonics, or overtones, within a consonant interval resembles that of a single sound. For example, a combination of notes that create an interval called a perfect fifth, a 2-to-3 integer ratio, could possibly be misheard as a single lower note. We first measured fusion in Western listeners by playing them 2-note intervals and asking them to judge if they heard 1 or 2 sounds. We found that indeed, consonant intervals, in blue, are more likely to be mistaken for a single sound, or fuse, compared to dissonant intervals, in brown. We were curious about whether this fusion effect would be present cross-culturally, or whether it would vary across cultures in the same way as consonance preference. The Chimane are an interesting group in which to study this question for several reasons. The Chimane live in a remote region of Bolivia. The Chimane villages in which we ran experiments are only seasonally accessible via 4-wheel drive or reachable by a several-day canoe journey. The villages do not have electricity or cell service. Group musical performances have also traditionally been absent from their culture. To the best of our knowledge, traditional songs were sung by individuals one at a time, generally without instrumental accompaniment. Their music is full of melodic intervals that are not particularly dissimilar from those in Western music, but harmony seems to be rare. Because of both the structure of their traditional music and their remoteness, Chimane have limited exposure to musical harmony, and Western music more generally. The main experiment in this paper involved assessing fusion and preference judgments in Chimane and Boston listeners. Participants were asked both whether they heard 1 note or 2, testing how much they fused different 2-note intervals, and how much they liked or disliked those same intervals. We replicated previous findings that Chimane do not prefer consonant to dissonant intervals, unlike Western listeners, who have a strong preference for consonants. However, we found that both Chimane and Boston participants were more likely to fuse consonant compared to dissonant intervals. In fact, the pattern of fusion across different intervals was fairly similar between Boston and Chimane participants. In both groups, intervals that are more similar to the harmonic series, such as the octave and perfect fifth, showed greater fusion than intervals like the perfect fourth and major third, which are less similar to the harmonic series. Overall, our results are consistent with the idea that the basic perceptual apparatus for hearing combinations of musical notes is similar across cultures. This finding provides an example of perceptual biases which could constrain musical systems and help explain common structure in music around the world. However, these same shared representations do not directly determine aesthetic responses, which appear to be culturally contingent. If you want to know more, you can see our paper and the other publications on our work with the Chimane.